Welcome back to the deep dive. Every day you're making choices, right?
Mm.
Especially online.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot of those choices, well, they might be influenced by something you're not even aware of. It's called the decoy effect.
A fascinating little bit of consumer psychology.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving deep into today.
We'll be taking a look at the article, The Decoy Effect, Strategic Pricing to Guide Customer Choices, E-commerce Psychology, breaking down how it works.
This deep dive is actually powered by Growth Suite, by the way.
Oh, right.
Growth Suite can help you run some really smart discount campaigns on your store. You can test it for free on your Shopify store, actually.
Just head over to the Shopify App Store.
Yep, give it a try. So the decoy effect. It all boils down to how a third option, one that's not even that great, can make one of the other choices suddenly seem way more appealing.
It's all about perception and how our brains make comparisons.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's start with the basics.
Sure.
What exactly is the decoy effect?
Okay, so in the simplest terms, it's a cognitive bias.
Okay.
It's this sneaky little mental shortcut that your brain might take.
Uh-huh.
And basically, the decoy effect is when you've got, say, two options you're considering.
Right.
And then, boom, a third option appears.
The decoy.
Exactly. And this decoy, it's specifically designed to be less attractive
Less attractive than what?
than one of the original choices, the one they really want you to pick.
I see.
So by introducing this kind of, well, inferior option, the decoy, it makes that other choice, the target, seem so much better in comparison.
So it's not just about having a bad option. It's about strategically positioning that bad option to influence your choice.
Precisely. The decoy isn't just bad in a vacuum, it's bad compared to something specific, and that's the key.
Fascinating. I've also heard this called a couple other names.
Oh yeah, it goes by a few aliases.
Like asymmetric dominance effect or the attraction effect.
Right. Right. It all gets at the same idea, though.
So it's not that we're inherently bad at judging value. It's that we're constantly comparing things.
That's the crux of it. We don't evaluate things in isolation.
We're looking at options relative to each other.
We're always weighing, always comparing.
That makes sense. So let's get into the psychology behind this.
Okay.
Why does this work on us?
Well, there are a couple of core psychological principles at play.
Okay.
One is the compromise effect.
The compromise effect.
Yeah. Imagine you're faced with two extremes.
Okay. Like a super expensive coffee maker and a really cheap one.
Exactly. In that situation, most people tend to gravitate towards the middle ground.
The one that feels like it's not too risky.
Right. Not too extravagant, not too flimsy.
Just right.
The Goldilocks principle?
Not too hot, not too cold.
Exactly.
I see. So by presenting extremes, they're kind of nudging you towards that middle option.
It's subtle, but effective.
Interesting. Okay, what's the other psychological principle?
The other one is the attraction effect.
Okay. And that's where the decoy really comes into play.
This is where it shines. So you introduce an option that's clearly inferior.
Inferior to one of the other choices, the target.
Right. And suddenly, just by comparison, that target option looks so much more appealing.
Like it's a steal.
Exactly. The decoy makes the target shine brighter.
Okay, so we kind of understand how it works on us psychologically.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about why businesses use this.
Okay, so from a business perspective,
Yeah,
the decoy effect is all about boosting sales and maximizing revenue.
right. They want us to pick the option that's best for their bottom line.
That's the goal. And the decoy effect is a clever way to do that without being overtly pushy.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. The article mentions a classic study with The Economist.
The Economist.
Yeah, the magazine. They were trying to get more people to subscribe.
Okay.
So they offered three options:
What were they?
a digital-only subscription, a print-only subscription, and then a combined print and digital subscription.
Okay, I see where this is going.
The catch was the print-only subscription was the same price as the print and digital.
So why would anyone choose print only when they could get both for the same price?
Exactly. The print-only option was the decoy.
Designed to make the combined subscription look like a no-brainer.
It was a huge success. They saw a massive jump in sales, something like 43%,
Wow, 43%. That's incredible.
just by adding that decoy option.
So this isn't just theoretical. It's a real strategy that businesses use every day.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere.
Okay, now I want to get back to the consumer's perspective.
Sure.
How does our brain actually react to these decoys? What's happening up there?
Well, like we talked about earlier, our brains are wired to look for relative value.
Rather than absolute value.
Right, we're comparison machines.
Okay.
And another thing is we generally try to avoid extremes.
Back to that compromise effect.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. Our brains have limited processing power.
Right.
So we rely on these mental shortcuts, these heuristics, to make decisions quickly.
So the decoy basically simplifies things for us.
It provides a clear point of reference. It's like, okay, this option is worse, so that one must be better.
Our brain just goes, boom, problem solved.
It's a quick and easy way to evaluate choices.
I see. But it's not just about simplifying choices, right? It also taps into our emotions.
Oh, absolutely. Emotions play a huge role in decision-making.
How so?
Well, when you see a decoy that's clearly inferior to the target option, it shifts your focus.
Focus to what?
It makes you focus on the areas where the target excels.
Like if the decoy is more expensive and has fewer features, suddenly the target looks like a fantastic deal.
Precisely. It creates this comparative lens that highlights the strengths of the target.
So it's not just about logic. It's also about how these comparisons make us feel.
Our feelings play a big role in our choices.
And there's actually a neurological basis for this, isn't there?
There is. Brain imaging studies have shown that when we're comparing options, certain areas of our brain light up,
Which areas?
like the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in decision-making.
Okay.
And get this, when we perceive that we've found a good deal, our brain releases dopamine.
Dopamine, the feel-good chemical.
Exactly. So finding a good deal actually rewards us on a neurological level.
So we're literally getting a little high from finding a bargain.
It reinforces that behavior.
No wonder we fall for the decoy effect.
It's a powerful combination of cognitive and emotional influences.
Okay, so we've talked about the psychology, the business motivations, and the neurological underpinnings.
Right.
Let's dig a little deeper into the two main mechanisms you mentioned earlier, the attraction effect and the compromise effect.
Okay.
Starting with the attraction effect, we talked about asymmetric dominance. Can you elaborate on that?
So in the attraction effect, remember you've got three options.
Right, the competitor, the target, and the decoy.
Exactly. Now the decoy is asymmetrically dominated by the target.
Meaning?
It means the decoy is worse than the target in pretty much every way.
It might be pricier, have fewer features, whatever.
Right. But here's the key. It's not necessarily worse than the competitor.
Oh, interesting. So it's specifically designed to make the target look good.
Exactly. It's like a sacrificial lamb highlighting the strengths of the target.
The decoy's only purpose is to make the target shine.
You got it.
Okay, let's move on to the compromise effect.
Sure.
We touched on this earlier, but can you break it down in more detail?
So with the compromise effect, you have a high-priced option, a low-priced option, and the target, which is usually somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Now, people tend to avoid extremes.
Like we said, the Goldilocks principle.
Exactly. So the high-priced and low-priced options act as anchors.
Anchors.
Yeah, they create a frame of reference.
Okay.
And within that frame, the middle option suddenly seems like the most reasonable, the most balanced choice.
It's the safe bet.
It's the compromise that feels the least risky.
So whether it's through asymmetric dominance or by creating this sense of compromise, the decoy effect is all about manipulating our perception of value.
It's about framing the choices in a way that nudges us towards a specific option.
Fascinating. Now let's talk about how businesses actually implement decoy pricing in the real world.
All right, so typically they follow what's called a three-option framework.
3 options.
Yeah, as we've been discussing, you have the competitor, the target, and the decoy.
Okay.
3 seems to be the sweet spot. Too few options and the decoy effect might not work as well.
Right.
Too many options and people get overwhelmed.
Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. So 3 options, strategically positioned, is usually the most effective.
Okay, what about the pricing and the features of these options? How do they figure that out?
That's where things get a bit more intricate. They have to carefully consider the price-feature relationship between the target and the decoy.
Okay.
For example, they might create a decoy that's priced similarly to the target but has fewer features.
Making the target seem like a better value.
Right. Or they might offer a decoy that's slightly better in terms of features, but significantly more expensive.
Making the target look like a bargain.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right balance to make the target the most appealing choice.
So it's not just about the options themselves, but also how they're presented visually.
Oh, absolutely. Visual presentation is crucial.
Like if they want you to choose the middle option, they might place it more prominently on the page.
Make it stand out. They might also highlight its key benefits or use clear labels to differentiate it from the other options.
So it's a combination of pricing, features, and presentation.
It's all about creating a compelling narrative that guides the consumer towards the desired choice.
Okay, the article gives some really interesting examples of this in action.
Yeah, it's all around us.
Let's start with subscription models.
Okay, we already talked about The Economist,
Yeah, the print and digital decoy,
but streaming services are another great example.
like Netflix.
Exactly. They have the basic plan, which is usually pretty limited.
Right, low resolution, only one screen.
Then they have the standard plan, which has HD and a couple of screens.
That's usually the one I go for.
And then there's the premium plan, which is Ultra HD and multiple screens.
But it's also a lot more expensive.
Right. So they've positioned the standard plan as the sweet spot,
It seems like the best balance of features and price.
especially when you compare it to the basic plan, which feels too restrictive.
And the premium plan, which feels like overkill.
Exactly. So you end up choosing the standard plan, even though you might not have initially considered it the best option.
Clever. What about retail? Do we see this in brick-and-mortar stores?
Oh, absolutely. The classic example is movie theater popcorn.
The Bicorn.
Yeah, you've got the small, the medium, and the large.
Okay.
The price difference between the medium and the large is often pretty small.
Right.
So the large seems like a much better deal.
Even though I probably don't need that much popcorn?
It's the classic decoy effect. The medium is the decoy, pushing you towards the large.
I've definitely fallen for that one.
You also see this good, best pricing in electronics.
Oh, yeah, the different tiers of TVs or laptops.
Right. The better option is usually the one they want you to pick, and they make it look the most appealing by comparing it to the good and the best.
It's all about strategic positioning. What about e-commerce, where I do most of my shopping these days?
E-commerce is a hotbed for the decoy effect. You often see it with product pages that have 3 options side by side.
Right.
The decoy might be priced oddly or have a strange combination of features.
To make the target option look more attractive.
Exactly. Like, you might see an app with a basic version, a premium version, and a pro version.
Okay.
The premium version might be only slightly better than the basic, but way more expensive.
So the pro version looks like the best deal.
Right. The premium version is the decoy nudging you towards the pro.
So even in the digital world, they're using these same tactics.
It's everywhere.
The article also highlights some successful case studies.
Yeah. Beyond The Economist and Netflix.
Can you give us a few examples?
Sure. Apple's iPhone storage tiers are a good one.
The storage.
Yeah. You've got the base storage level, then the middle option, and then the highest capacity.
Okay.
They often position the middle storage option as the sweet spot.
It's a balance of storage and price.
Right. The base level might not be enough, and the highest level is often a big price jump.
So you end up going for the middle option.
It's the one that seems the most reasonable.
It's amazing how they figured out these subtle ways to influence our choices.
It's a fascinating area of consumer psychology.
Okay, let's talk about measuring the success of these strategies.
Okay, so businesses use various key performance indicators, or KPIs, to track how well their decoy pricing is working.
Like what?
Well, one is the conversion rate. Are more people actually buying after they see the decoy?
Makes sense. What else?
They also look at the average order value. Are people spending more because of the decoy? And crucially, they track the target option selection rate. How many people are choosing the product that the decoy is designed to promote?
Right, that's the ultimate goal.
And of course, they also consider customer satisfaction.
They don't want to alienate customers by being too manipulative.
That's right. It's all about finding that balance between optimizing sales and maintaining a positive customer experience.
So how do they actually test these strategies?
Well, A/B testing is a big one.
A/B testing.
Yeah, they basically create 2 versions of a product page, one with the decoy and one without.
Okay.
And then they show these versions to different groups of customers to see which one performs better.
So they can see the direct impact of the decoy.
Exactly. It's a very data-driven approach.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the future of the decoy effect? Any exciting new developments on the horizon?
Oh, definitely. Technology is playing a big role in how the decoy effect is evolving.
How so?
Well, we're seeing more personalized decoys.
Personally.
Yeah. Using AI and real-time data, businesses can tailor the decoy option to individual customers.
So the decoy is even more effective because it's specifically designed for me.
Exactly. It's about creating a more targeted and personalized experience.
Wow.
What else? Another area is multi-attribute decoys. Instead of just focusing on price or one key feature, businesses can create decoys that are inferior on multiple attributes.
So it's even more obvious that the target option is the best choice.
Right. It's about creating a stronger contrast.
And then there's The whole world of virtual and augmented reality.
Oh yeah, that's going to be huge. Imagine being able to virtually compare products side by side with a decoy strategically placed right there in the mix.
It's like taking the decoy effect to a whole new level.
It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Okay, so for our listeners who might be business owners or marketers, what's a practical way to start implementing decoy pricing?
Well, the article outlines a pretty straightforward process. First, you need to identify your target product.
The one you want to sell more of.
Right. Then you need to design your decoy, something that's clearly less attractive than the target.
Okay.
Next, you need a competitor option, something that's not as good as the target, but still relevant.
Okay.
And finally, and this is crucial, you need to test and refine your strategy.
Using A/B testing.
Exactly. See what works best for your target audience.
So it's a combination of thoughtful planning and data-driven experimentation.
That's right.
Any common pitfalls to avoid?
Yeah, one is making the decoy too obvious. If customers feel like they're being manipulated, it can backfire.
Right, that makes sense. What else?
Another pitfall is not differentiating enough between the options.
If they're too similar, the decoy effect won't work.
Right. You also need to keep your brand positioning in mind.
The decoy strategy should align with your overall brand image.
And finally, remember that different customer segments might respond differently to the same decoy.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to understand your target audience and tailor your strategy accordingly.
This has been a truly insightful deep dive into the decoy effect.
I agree.
It's incredible how these subtle psychological nudges can have such a big impact on our decisions.
It really highlights the power of consumer psychology.
This was a deep dive into the decoy effect, powered by Growth Suite.
Mm-hmm.
Growth Suite can help you run some really smart discount campaigns on your store. You can test it for free on your Shopify store.
It's free to try.
Yep. Just head over to the Shopify App Store and check it out.
You won't regret it.
You know, you might also find our discussion on the e-commerce conversion booster, mastering pricing and presentation psychology helpful.
Oh, definitely. Lots of good insights there.
Now, for our final thought. Now that you're aware of the decoy effect, how will you approach your next purchase decision? Or, if you're a business owner, how will you approach your next pricing strategy?
Food for thought.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Until then.